remembered every other video but this one. Good morning, and welcome to Practical Christian Lessons. We're on Wisdom of Sirach 39. If you're wondering what I forgot, it was to move the mic before recording. If you missed it last Saturday, we did a live stream. If I can figure it out, I'll have a video on the channel of just the content I talked about, and then if there was anyone up early enough for the Q&A, that'll be separate and on the live stream only. And we'll do one every month, so keep an eye out on our community post. Every month I'll post a community post to say what Saturday of the month it's going to be on. But we are going to be talking about Wisdom of Sirach 39 today. We're almost to the end. How different is the man who devotes himself to the study of the law most high. He will seek out the wisdom of all the ancients, and be preoccupied with their prophecies. He will preserve the discourse of notable men, and penetrate the subtleties of parables. He will seek out the hidden meanings of proverbs, and be engaged in the riddles of parables. He will serve in the midst of great men, and will appear before rulers. He will travel through the land of foreign nations, and test the good and evil among men. He will give his heart to rising early before the Lord who created him, and will make supplications to the Most High. And he will open his mouth in prayer and make supplication for his sins. If the great Lord wills, he will be filled with the spirit of understanding. He will pour forth words of wisdom, and in prayer he will give thanks to the Lord. He will direct his counsel and knowledge aright, and he will reflect on his hidden things. He will reveal instruction in his teachings, and boast in the law of the Lord's covenant. Many will praise his understanding, and it will never be blotted out. His memory will not disappear, and his name will live through all generations. Nations will proclaim his wisdom, and the assembly will proclaim its praise. If he lives long, he will leave a name greater than 1,000, and if he goes to rest, his work is completed. I have yet more to tell, and I will describe it in detail, for I am filled like a full moon. So hear me, O holy sons, and bud forth like a rose, springing up by a running stream. Like frankincense, emit a sweet fragrance, and blossom forth like a lily. Send forth a fragrance, and sing a hymn of praise. Bless the Lord in all his works. Ascribe majesty to his name, and give thanks to him in praise. With songs on your lips and with lyres, and thus you shall say in thanksgiving, all things are the works of the Lord, for they are exceedingly good, and every command shall be in his appointed time. No one can say, what is this? Why is that? For every question will be answered in his appointed time. By his word the waters stood as a heap, and the reservoirs of the waters by the word of his mouth. By his command all his good pleasure is done, and no one will diminish his salvation. The works of all flesh are before him, and nothing can be hidden from his eyes. From age to age he looks upon them, and nothing is marvelous to him. No one can say, what is this? Why is that? For all things were created for their uses. His blessings cover the dry land like a river, and drenches it like a flood. As he turns fresh waters into salt, so the heathen will inherit his wrath. As his ways are straight to the holy, so they are an occasion of stumbling to the lawless. As from the beginning good things were created for the good, so evil things for sinners. The basic needs of a man's life are water, fire, iron, salt, and wheat, flour, and milk, honey, the blood of the grape, olive oil, and clothing. As all these things are good for the godly, so they turn into evil for sinners. There are spirits created for vengeance, and in his anger they strengthen their scourges. In the time of consummation they will pour out their might, and appease the wrath of him who made them. Fire, hail, famine, and death. All these things are created for vengeance. The teeth of wild animals, scorpions, and snakes, and the avenging sword that drives the ungodly to destruction. They shall be glad at his commandment, and be prepared for his service on earth. And when their times come, they will not transgress his word. Therefore, from the beginning I was determined and resolved, and left this in writing. All the works of the Lord are good, and he will supply every need in its hour. No one can say, this is worse than that, for all things will be well-pleasing in their time. So now sing praise with all your heart and voice, and bless the name of the Lord. And that is Wisdom of Sirach 39, and it's a topic we certainly talked plenty about before. And just yesterday we talked about the Lord's works and how a lot of things that we maybe think about in our more naturalistic lens in the modern world, we don't think about as God's works that should be. here is all about that, and very emphatic about judgment. And I think a more important thing is the way it talks about really a present sense of judgment. I know in our... I've before I say this, I fully affirm God's sovereignty and God is in complete control. I am an Arminian, which is why I say that. Some people will have a misconception of that. Go watch our predestination video. It'll be on our channel, and we'll have a playlist. I believe it's Arminian theology and or Wesleyan Arminian theology. It'll be in there, and I'll run through that. But I think that's something we kind of don't talk about at least in Western cultures. I can't comment on places like Africa and China and other places where the church is strong and vibrant. And we don't talk a lot about trials and periods of testing and being reprimanded by the Lord in our Western culture. And I think a lot of that does stem from... no one really wants to talk about it in the first place. That's not what people want to hear about. But that's just really not how our culture kind of thinks and views things. And the natural human tendency is always to view when something's going wrong, it tends to be more viewing it as a punishment from God rather than as a potential corrective or formational tool. If you go through, the classic example is going to be the Exodus. The entire Exodus narrative is forming Israel. If you read the first half, not the first half, really like the first small portion, the first 10, 11 chapters, it's talking about how God is using the judgment of Egypt not only to tell the Egyptians that he is the Lord and tell the world that he is the Lord, but it's also like, hey, Israelites, I am your Lord. This is who I am. Look at what I am doing and bear this in mind. Remember this. Not only am I judging Israel, I am freeing you. I am bringing you out of bondage. And it's seeing his, in that case there, his judgment on Egypt in the present time as a tool of instruction and reprimandation, of saying, hey, Egypt, you have gone so far astray. You are worshiping idols. You are enslaving my people. This is not good. You must be punished. And instruction to the Israelites of, this is how you know I am the Lord your God. And this is how you know you will follow me. And that will set you free. And then over the next chapters after that, you get the 10 words, the 10 commandments. You get the laws on. And then Israel goes through the wilderness. And we see in Deuteronomy and Numbers, the story continues. And in Deuteronomy, you get the famous passage that Jesus cites, man does not live on bread alone. And the whole point of the Exodus narrative of traveling through the wilderness is to form Israel and to form the people. And God's using what we would say are pretty harsh experiences, right? Wandering through a desert. A desert's not a fun place to wander through, but it's part of forming Israel. It's supposed to shape them. And when you go through the pastoral epistles, as many call them, right? 1st and 2nd Peter, James, John's letters, Paul's letters, people call those pastoral epistles. And in quite a few of those, it talks about going through trials, going through persecutions, and that those are things of which we can praise God for, that we are going through them. It's a sign that we are of God. But it's also, they talk about how that can shape you, how that can form you. James's letter is like a classic wisdom literature type letter, and it talks about this as well. And I think that's something we really need to kind of recover in our modern senses. Yes, there are sometimes temporal repercussions here in our physical world for our sins and wrongdoings. Sometimes they're not that. Sometimes they are just someone else's sin, or something's just gone wrong because we live in a fallen world. Sometimes it's not that. And there are times where we're going to be put through something to form us and shape us for something later in life. And, I don't have a secret litmus key. I don't have any way to tell you, some kind of litmus test to tell you what those are in your life, other than to pray and ask God to tell you and strengthen you in each of these seasons, whether it be of God or from outside. And always turn it over to God, right? As Paul says in Romans 8:28, I believe, right? Where he works all things towards good. I might be getting the wrong passage there and citing that with the nothing can take you away from the Lord's love. Well, but the Lord does work all things towards good. And we see that in Joseph's story. Right? When the brothers threw him in the well, they were working that towards evil. And God said, and Joseph tells them, God worked this towards good. Did God make them throw Joseph in the well? No. But he took what the evil action they did was and turned it into something good. And it's the same thing in our time. whether that is things that are trials that form us, whether that is people's evil actions that are then turned against them and used for good ends, whatever these things are. They are tools the Lord uses. Nothing is beyond the Lord's control, so that is absolutely something he can and does do. And keep that in mind. I know that when we go through trials and dark seasons, that they are hard, but there's a light at the end, and the Lord is always good. May you guys go and walk in light and blessings. Have a good day. God bless.